Okay guys, so initially I decided to make this a two-part episode, but while I was filming part 2, I realized that this may be better in 3 parts. So you will hear me say two-part episode in this video, but just keep in mind that I decided to make it 3 parts just because it is such a long story. I feel like it'll be better to just break it up than having it be one huge long video. So stay tuned. Make sure you watch part 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Hello and welcome to another episode of I Just Want to Be Spiritual. Today I'm going to be talking about something that's very personal to me that I haven't opened up to a lot of people about. And this will be a 2-part episode, so look out for part 2 next week. But first, let's talk about the crystal of the day, which is rainbow fluorite. And you can't really see it very well on the camera. You can't see all the colors in it, but like the name, it has different colors. Like there's purple in there and some green, and I feel like there's a little bit of clear. And you can also find like green fluorite or blue fluorite that are just plain colored. I like this one because I think it's prettier. This one is good for strengthening your intuition. So this one is connected to your third eye chakra, which is right here. So this kind of strengthens your intuition, enhances protection, so protecting you from negative energy, protecting you from just protecting you from other people's ill will or anything like that, energy vampires, which I've talked about in other episodes. So yeah, this improves concentration, enhances clarity of mind, promotes self-confidence, and balances the emotional body. So if you need any of those things, and there are other properties, you can Google and see what else rainbow fluorite does, but if you need any of those things, this might be something that you want to work with. I intend to get bigger pieces of this so that I can work more with it. This is something that I work with a lot, but I do carry it on me sometimes. So rainbow fluorite. And today, all right, so I just want to get into the topic of today. That is brain surgery. So I had brain surgery on May 5th, 2020. And so this episode, I'm just going to be talking about how I ended up at having to schedule a brain surgery. And then in the next episode, I will be talking about the surgery itself, the recovery process, and my current medical state. So just kind of rewinding a little bit. So for a few years, I struggled with having irregular menstrual cycles, having excess hairs, so just random hairs, like in places that you wouldn't normally think that they would be on a woman, and then having really bad acne. At a certain point, it was really bad, like just in this area, it was super inflamed. It hurt really bad, so it was like that cystic acne, and it just kind of happened all of a sudden. Like all of a sudden, I just remember in the summertime, I'd always had acne, but it just was like the worst it's ever been, and then on and off for years. It was really terrible, and the only thing that I could do to kind of help it calm down a little bit was take turmeric capsules, and that seemed to help. But other than that, it was really bad. And so I went to the doctor, and they referred me to an endocrinologist because I was thinking that maybe I had PCOS, which is Poly Cystic Ovarian Syndrome, because my sister had been recently diagnosed with it, and she had a lot of the similar symptoms that I was having. And so I pushed for my doctor to refer me to somebody who could help me with that. So for those that don't know, polycystic ovarian syndrome can lead to irregular periods, acne, hair growth, different things like that, because it's, I guess it messes with women's hormones. So it causes a hormone imbalance in your body. And most women, or most of the time, it's easily detected because of cysts on your ovaries. I did not have cysts on my ovaries, but I had a lot of the other symptoms, and so the endocrinologist just told me that I have PCOS, and here are some ways that you can deal with it. So I started taking birth control to regulate my period. I started taking metformin because at that time I was pre-diabetic, so I guess that helps with blood sugar or something. I don't know. Medically, I'm really not a doctor, so I don't know exactly what it was for. And then something called spironolactone, which was supposed to help with the hair growth. And so I took all those on and off for about 3 years, give or take. And they didn't really work for me. Nothing worked. I didn't feel any different. My periods did not regulate. The hair growth didn't stop. And I still just didn't feel good. So, and by the time I came back I left home for a little bit and I came back, I had gained about 40 to 50 pounds from my lowest weight. So my lowest weight, I was about 135, which was too low for me. But by the time I had come back home and started seeing a new endocrinologist, I was about 185, almost 190 pounds. So all of these things are happening as I am on birth control and on, all these different things. And I don't know if the birth control was causing me to gain weight. I didn't know what was going on. And so none of these things were helping. I didn't feel like I felt any better by taking all these medicines. And I didn't like putting them in my body. And so I was on the verge of just really not taking them anymore. And then I read, I came across, I forget how I did, but I came across a book called Beyond the Pill, and it was by Jolene Brighton. I have it right here, actually. So this is called Beyond the Pill, and it's a program. I didn't pay for the program, but I just read the book, and it's like a 30-day program to balance your hormones, reclaim your body, and reverse the dangerous side effects of the birth control pill. And I think I heard her on a podcast. I can't remember what podcast it was, but I heard her speaking on a podcast and speaking on the dangers of taking birth control and just the side effects. And I was really curious, so I bought the book and started reading, and I was like, this sounds a lot like what I'm going through, and this sounds a lot like something that could help me. And there were a lot of things in here where I was like, I didn't know that all these things could be happening by taking the birth control pill. And so for myself, I decided that I did not want to take the birth control anymore. I didn't feel like it was beneficial to me anymore. And after reading that book, I just decided this isn't something that I want to put into my body anymore. So I stopped taking all of those things. No birth control, no nothing. And then I went to see my new endocrinologist because the previous one I had different insurance. So I had a new endocrinologist, and he agreed with me. He was like, if they're not working for you, you don't need to take them anymore because it's, there's no point. And so that made me feel better because I was worried, like, what happens now? What do I do now? I thought I had a diagnosis. I thought these things were going to help. They didn't help. And I'm still having this issue, and I'm continuing to gain weight. And I'm exercising. I was exercising 5 times a week at that time. I had joined like a women's boot camp. So I was like doing high intensity workouts and trying to eat right, and nothing was working. I was not losing a pound. So I was like, this is not working for me. And I felt tired, and I felt really heavy and just sluggish and lethargic. I didn't want to do anything. I just did not feel like myself, and I didn't feel good at all. And so I went back to my doctor, Dr. Ju, who is like amazing, such an angel for me. And I told him that at that point I was considering having a gastric sleeve, so weight loss surgery. I know people who have had weight loss surgery, and I figured that was my only option at this point because nothing else was working. So I had started the process of, getting consulted for a weight loss surgery. And he was, saying, I think you should wait because there's one more option. Something else could be going on with you. And it's called Cushing's disease. And I had never heard of Cushing's disease, but he explained to me that it is something that affects hormones. It's something that's not well researched as of now. So not all doctors are really knowledgeable about it. But he was, and it was something that he seemed very passionate about understanding and really knowledgeable about. And so I just really thank God that I landed in his office, because he just unlocked the door to everything by just trying to find another solution. He didn't just give me a like cookie cutter, okay, you have PCOS, take this. Like, he was like, there's something else, and let's do some blood work, let's do some tests and other things to see if you meet the requirements for Cushing's disease. So I did a bunch of different blood tests, urine tests, all this kind of different stuff to check my cortisol levels. And I guess when you have Cushing's, you have too much cortisol. So your body is producing too much cortisol, which leads to all the other stuff. And so my test came back and my cortisol levels were super high, like through the roof, ridiculously high. And he was like, okay, so let's do another test, because when your cortisol levels are high, Cushing's disease can either come from your adrenal glands, which I think is like in the trunk. I really don't know where it is. Or it can come from your pituitary gland, which is on your brain. And he says, okay, if it is on your pituitary gland, he was saying that based on the test that he ran and the way that the levels looked, it looked like my situation was because of my pituitary gland. And he said, if it is a tumor on your pituitary gland, the option is radiation or surgery. And that he explained, the surgery process. And then I was worried because I'm like, I don't want to shave my head. I don't want nobody going through my brain. Like, what are you talking about? And then he said, no, it's endoscopics, meaning somebody will go through your nose to get to your brain and get the tumor off of there. So obviously neither option sounded ideal, and I was scared. And I went to that doctor's appointment alone because I didn't know he was going to tell me that. And so that was even worse, just because I was by myself hearing that I may have a tumor on my brain, and it's either radiation or surgery. And I was like, well, can we just leave it there? And he's like, no, it's going to be worse. Like, if you leave it there, your body's just going to get worse, and it can do more damage, more harm, and so it's better if you remove it. And so I had to take that. And I went home and I cried to my sister, and I prayed, and it was just a lot. It was anxiety provoking. I was scared, worried, I was mad, like, why is this happening to me? I was, like, all those different things, and I just cried. But I was also relieved. I was relieved to finally have a real definitive answer, and something that felt like a resolution, some type of light at the end of the tunnel, because for years I just had, okay, you have PCOS, take this medicine, there's no cure, whatever, like, we're not really trying to help you. So to have an actual diagnosis and something to explain everything that was going on with me made a lot of sense. And the more research that I did in the coming months on Cushing's and everything that comes along with it, it made sense what was going on with me. A lot of the things that I didn't even realize were a part of Cushing's were happening to me. So, being super irritable and, just all these different things. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea. So it just opened a door for me to know that this is a possibility. And so my doctor scheduled an MRI on my brain for the pituitary gland to see if he was right, basically. So I had to wait a couple weeks for that. and it came back showing that I did have a tumor on my pituitary gland, which was about 8 millimeters big. So it wasn't super big, but on your pituitary gland, it's you know, pretty big, and it obviously was making an impact. So you know, he saw the MRI, and they called me and told me, yes, you do have it. This is how big it is. And Dr. Joe is going to refer you to a neurosurgeon for the next step. So I was really scared. And before that, I didn't know if the tumor, you hear tumor, you think cancer. So I didn't know if this was a malignant tumor. I didn't know I didn't know anything about the tumor. And so when they called me, they said, it's benign. It's this big. We're going to refer you to a neurosurgeon. So it was relieving to know that it wasn't cancerous, but it was also scary because now I have to have brain surgery. What the heck does that look like? Like, what does that process look like? So the whole time I'm having a lot of mixed emotions, and I'm trying to figure out how I feel, and I'm trying to continue to just live life, and it's a lot. It's a lot to try and juggle. I didn't process it for a long time. I didn't really sit with it and like feel what I was feeling. I just kind of like, I don't know, it's such a hard thing to explain, but it was very difficult to learn that I have a tumor on my brain, and now, okay, what happens next? And I didn't tell a lot of people when I was going through all of this. I did not share a lot with a lot of people, and once I finally figured out that I did have a tumor, I started opening up and telling my friends and, you know, close family members what was happening with me and what would be happening in the future, that, you know, in a few months I would be having brain surgery. Just because up until that point, I didn't want to say anything without having something concrete. I don't know, I just didn't want to freak myself out more, I guess, and so I only told a few people, and that was my decision. That I am kind of a private person, and so when certain things happen, I don't open up a lot, and I honestly don't open up, how can I put this? I only share with people who are a part of my day-to-day life, so people who are with, you know, talk to me consistently, who check on me consistently, who I feel close with, who I feel connected with, who I feel like care about me and care for me, and, you know, we are part of each other's daily lives. We may not see each other all the time, but we have that connection and that bond to where I want to let them know when something serious is going on. And so that was my thought process. It ended up being a little, you know, causing a little bit of friction, I guess, because certain, you know, people may not have known, or my family wanted to tell this person or that person, and it's just kind of like, I understand that part of it, of course, you know, because I know that my family cares about me. However, I dealt with it in the way that I did because I was scared and I just didn't know what to do. There's no, like, what do you, like, you know, I was having a brain surgery, and so I felt badly about not telling people, but then at the same time, I had to realize that their feelings is taking away from my feelings, and I'm the one that's getting ready to have brain surgery. I'm the one that has to deal with all of this, and so I had to take my focus off of other people and focus on me and the fact that I'm dealing with something very heavy right now, and I cannot be worried about how somebody else feels because I didn't share it with them. So it wasn't personal to anybody. It just was what it was. So yeah, I got the MRI results, got referred to a neurosurgeon, which was about an hour away. Because of my insurance, it was very specific. They have very specific people that you can see, and so I went to go see this person. He was really nice, but for the surgery that I needed, you need a neurosurgeon and an ENT. So you need somebody to do the nose part of it, to like get go through the nose and get to the brain, and then you need somebody to work on the brain. So it's a 2-surgeon like deal. And this first neurosurgeon that I was referred to didn't have an ENT that took my insurance that he worked with. And so he was like, I'm going to check around for you, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. If not, I'm going to try and refer you to UCI, so UC Irvine. And so I was like, okay, you know, so I didn't really want to do that because I wanted to get it out of the way. I wanted to get the surgery, be done, like get it over with. But it took a few weeks for him to do the research and figure out whether or not he would be able to perform the surgery for me. Ultimately, he was not able to do that. So he had to try and refer me to UCI, which was a task in itself because my insurance was just being ridiculous. It was super hard to make that transfer, to get them to approve me going to UCI, just all that kind of stuff. And so it took me a few weeks and a lot of frustration to finally get an appointment with that neurosurgeon for a consultation, for him to explain to me what the surgery would be like, and then to meet, you know, his staff and all those different things. So I finally got that appointment. I talked to Dr. Sue, and he explained to me how the surgery works, you know, the recovery process. I asked all the questions and all those different things. And then I left, and he said, we'll call you when we have a surgery date because I have to coordinate my schedule with the ENT. So I had to meet with the ENT before that. ENT, yeah. The ENT, Dr. Bandarker, to like look through my nose, make sure there wasn't anything that was going to be blocking, or just make sure that I was all good to go. And then, so yeah, I had to wait for a couple weeks for that. And at this time I was curious about the process, and I didn't really have anybody to talk to because I don't know anybody else that has or has had Cushing's. So I joined Facebook groups just to feel like I had a community and people to talk to and ask questions to. And so I joined, you know, different Cushing's groups to talk to people and get some advice and get some idea of how the surgery is going to go, what should I do to prepare for the surgery, what's going to happen after the surgery, all those different questions that I had. And it was good and bad. Like, some stuff that people went through scared me to death, and I wish I hadn't seen it because I'm like, oh my God, what if that happens to me? And some people were really encouraging, and their story made me feel like, okay, I can do this, it's going to be okay. So it was a double-edged sword, and after a while I had to kind of like take a step back from the groups just because it was overwhelming, because Cushing's is such a wide, there's such a wide range of symptoms that not all of them are going to apply to you. So it was hard to gauge and to not know if that was going to happen or not. So I needed to just not watch or look at so many of the comments. So I had to take a step back and just focus on what I could focus on. And then I had to prepare myself for having brain surgery, which was not easy. How do you prepare for something that you don't even know? Like, you don't know how to prepare for a brain surgery. You just don't. And especially by this time, this is May 2020, so we've been in a pandemic for 2 months. So on top of having brain surgery, I'm also worried about contracting a deadly virus in the hospital, and knowing that there's potential that nobody is going to be allowed in the hospital with me. So I'm going to be completely alone. So it was a lot to deal with. It was a lot to process. And there were a lot of doctor's appointments up until that point. MRIs, CT scans, prepping. I had to do a COVID test, so like right up my nose, to make sure that I was prepared for surgery. I was nervous about having people in the house that didn't live here because I didn't want to get sick before my surgery. So it was very, very stressful and scary and sad and worrisome. I had to lean on my faith a lot because I was scared. I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to happen after that. And I just had to pray, like, God, please protect me. And then please just help me get through this. Please make it be all right. And not only dealing with my own emotions, but dealing with the fact that my family is terrified, but they're trying to be strong for me. And it was just a lot. So I really thank God that up until that point, once I started opening up to the people that were closest to me, I felt like I had a good amount of support and people just reminding me that it's going to be okay and praying for me and all of those different things, because it just made me feel a whole lot better. Even though I was still terrified, I just felt like I have support, so it will be okay. It's going to be fine. So yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. If you want to hear the rest, tune in next week and watch episode 2 of my brain surgery. Bye.